you might not know. From the biggest flops to the greatest hits, this is Trash Can Tidbits.
Hello everyone, my name is Beaton and this is Trash Can Tidbits. I hope you enjoyed my little travel video on my trip to Malmo, Sweden and Nordic FuzzCon. I loved it there and I love sharing what I did over there. Last time I asked the question, what two Nintendo 64 games by Rare required the expansion pack to play? The answer or answers are Perfect Dark and Donkey Kong 64. Once development on those games had reached their peaks, it became obvious that the more content that was added, the amount of RAM needed to run these games needed to be increased as well. The expansion pack actually came bundled with Donkey Kong 64, as it was the only solution to fixing a game-breaking bug that wouldn't have been repaired without it otherwise. Similarly, the add-on was a requirement for Perfect Dark to access the game's main campaign. Without it, you would only be able to play the game's multiplayer mode. Now, with that addressed, let's get started with fact number 1, which was brought to you, in part, by my partner, Silverfang. Did you know that there is not only a current British West End revival of Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing, but the two leading actors have ties to another production of the same play made for the movies? This new production stars Tom Hiddleston as Benedict and Hayley Atwell as Beatrice, two strangers who hate each other but are set up to fall in love with each other as part of a matchmaking scheme. Both actors are well known for their work with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tom plays Loki, and Hayley plays Agent or Captain Peggy Carter. If you follow Silver's Twitter, you'll know how much of a fangirl she is over Hayley. But anyway, one of the more well-known film versions of Much Ado was released in 1993, directed by and starring Kenneth Branagh as Benedict and Emma Thompson as Beatrice. The first Thor movie, which featured Hiddleston as Loki, was directed by Branagh. As for Hayley Atwell, she shares her own tie with Emma Thompson. Emma starred in the lead role of Margaret Schlegel in the 1992 period drama Howard's End, and Hayley played the same character in a 2017 British miniseries. Thanks for that fact, Silver. Fact 2. Sticking with that 93 Much Ado movie, did you also know that while Kenneth Branagh was well known in the 90s for directing and starring in Shakespearean film adaptations, he was also the last actor to receive an Oscar nomination for being in one for over 30 years. Unfortunately, try as they might, Much Ado did not receive any nominations, but Branagh's Best Actor nomination was for probably his best performance in Henry V in 1989. He not only lost that win to Daniel Day-Lewis for My Left Foot, but Branagh's performance marked a long gap for another actor to receive a nomination for a Shakespearean drama until Denzel Washington was nominated for Best Actor in 2019's The Tragedy of Macbeth, 32 years later. Coincidentally, Washington was also in Much Ado About Nothing alongside Branagh. Fact 3. Did you know that Mary Jane Watson, Peter Parker's main love interest, was going to appear in The Amazing Spider-Man 2? She was already a central character in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and she would have played a supporting role in the second installment of the first reboot, and she would have been played by Shailene Woodley, best known for movies like The Fault in Our Stars and Divergent. Woodley allegedly filmed all of her scenes, but it was decided that the movie was already too long and had too many characters, so it was decided to focus on the relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy and her subsequent death. Woodley's scenes are not shown in any deleted scenes and have not been seen to this day. Fact 4. Did you know that a black comedian whose most famous routine about a first date gone wrong had an animated movie made about it, which came out 2 years after his death? Stand-up comedian Robin Harris made a name for himself in the 1980s, performing at Los Angeles' famous Comedy Store, and appeared in some well-known films of the time such as Harlem Nights alongside Eddie Murphy and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing and Mo Better Blues. Harris's most famous routine was called Bebe's Kids, which revolved around him going on a first date with his girlfriend while she was also babysitting her friend Bebe's 3 rambunctious children who made it their mission to humiliate and annoy Harris as much as possible. The catchphrase he came up for them was, "We don't die, we multiply." Plans were made to turn the routine into a live-action movie, but Harris tragically passed away in 1990 at the age of 36. Bebe's Kids would instead get the animated treatment, and it would be released in 1992, 2 years after Harris's death. But even more tragically, the movie would be a critical and commercial failure. Fact 5. Did you know that while The Greatest Showman is a largely fictitious account of P.T. Barnum's life, there was one small subplot from his life that was planned to be added but was deleted? It was documented that in real life, one of Barnum's earliest exhibits was an elderly black woman and former slave named Joyce Heath, who Barnum claimed to be the 161-year-old nanny to George Washington, which she obviously wasn't. The movie had a plan to actually showcase this, and Heath was to have been played by actress and singer Diane Carroll. I'm not sure if the scenes were ever filmed or not, but possibly due to the mention of slavery and the portrayal of a black woman being displayed for money, the Joyce Heath subplot was taken out. The movie's intention was to portray the Barnum character as a champion for equal rights for his performers, while the real man himself was kinda split between the middle. But that's an entirely different story in and of itself. And also, the movie makes no mention of the phrase most associated with P.T. Barnum: "There's a sucker born every minute." Fact 6. Did you know that there was an expanded version of the first Metal Gear Solid game for the PlayStation that came out only in Japan at first? Titled Metal Gear Solid Integral, it was originally a Japanese exclusive that was a re-release of the first MGS, but with some enhanced features. Some of these examples include more unlockable costumes, including a tuxedo for Solid Snake, the choice between Japanese or English voice acting with Japanese subtitles, some extra codec frequency numbers, an unlockable minigame that required the use of the Pocket Station memory peripheral that only came out in Japan, and a third disc consisting entirely of VR training missions and scenarios. That same VR disc would later be released as a standalone game in the Western markets. In addition to all of those, there's access to a hidden photoshoot session where Snake can take photos of the two female supporting characters of Naomi Hunter and Mei Ling. MGS Integral would later be released internationally years later on both the PS1 and the PC, and would serve as the blueprint for the expanded editions of Metal Gear Solids 2 and 3, known as Substance and Subsistence, respectively. Fact 7. Did you know that while Spider-Man's iconic motto, "With great power comes great responsibility," has been established as having come from his beloved Uncle Ben, he actually didn't say it to Peter in his first comics appearance? Spider-Man's origin story has pretty much remained the same, including the death of Uncle Ben, which he inadvertently caused. In the first Spider-Man movie, Uncle Ben says the phrase to Peter in the midst of an argument between the two of them, which made his death all the more personal and heartbreaking, and to drive the lesson home even further. In Amazing Fantasy 15, Spider-Man's first appearance, he comes to know the phrase through a narrative moment when apprehending the criminal who killed Uncle Ben. The "with great power" phrase has become a definitive part of the Spider-Man character, even working its way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it's said to him not by Uncle Ben, but by Aunt May, who perishes during an attack by the Green Goblin. Fact 8. Did you know that one of Jim Carrey's other characters appears in a background shot in the movie Liar Liar? Before starring in his own movies, Carrey got his start on TV as part of the sketch comedy series In Living Color. One of his recurring characters was a goofy individual named Fire Marshal Bill, whose shtick would be to show how unsafe ordinary activities are by engaging in many destructive off-the-ball antics. In his many skits, accompanied by his catchphrase, "Let me show you something," he would proceed to show the viewers the unsafe way to do things, causing wanton destruction and personal injury to himself in the process, which usually ended in utter catastrophe for the people he was educating. During the climax of Liar Liar, Carrey's character Fletcher Reed uses a forklift to stop a plane from taking off. He crashes and goes flying, landing in a large pile of luggage and injuring himself in the process. Fire Marshal Bill himself, as played by Carrey, can be seen in a shot of the crowd looking on as Fletcher is loaded onto a stretcher. Fact 9. Did you know that Captain Barbossa in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise was usually seen from a particular position on the screen? It was actor Jeffrey Rush who suggested to the filmmakers that whenever Barbossa was on screen with a particular character in a given scene, he would be positioned so that he would be on their right, which would indicate screen left to the average audience. This perspective is similar to reading a book. You read from left to right. Rush's idea was that by seeing Barbossa on the left side of the screen, he wouldn't be taking the attention away from some of the more attractive actors like Keira Knightley or Orlando Bloom. He felt that the audience wouldn't be looking at him anyway because, in his opinion, Barbossa was pretty ugly looking already. This is evident in the famous three-way island meeting scene in At World's End, where Barbossa is seen with Elizabeth and Jack Sparrow. I mean, Captain Jack Sparrow. He is on the far left of the screen, as expected. Fact 10. Did you know that Metal Gear Solid 2's release coincided with the release of the Xbox? Developed for the PlayStation 2, the game showcased Hideo Kojima's storytelling style to a degree that hadn't been seen on the console at that time. However, there were a couple of instances that had to be adjusted due to 9/11. The game's finale would have had Raiden and Solidus Snake fighting on the remains of Arsenal gear near the World Trade Center. The fight location was changed to the rooftops of New York's Federal Reserve Bank instead. As such, the game's release was delayed for a few months, releasing on November 13th, 2001. Microsoft's first console, the Xbox, was released 2 days later on November 15th. 1 year later, the Xbox would play host to its own stealth-based game and franchise, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. While the former game had a year's head start and managed to gain positive success, Splinter Cell more than held its own against the competition. And as previously mentioned, Metal Gear Solid 2 would get an enhanced port, Substance, which was originally released for the Xbox in November 2002, around the same time that Splinter Cell came out. And here's today's trivia question. James McAvoy has become one of the most diverse actors of this generation. He is known for his performances in movies like Atonement, Split, the TV series His Dark Materials, and of course, the X-Men franchise, playing a younger version of Professor Charles Xavier, originated by the great Sir Patrick Stewart. My two personal favorite X-Men movies happen to star him as Xavier, First Class and Days of Future Past. McAvoy even got to share the screen with Stewart in the latter movie. Like his older counterpart, McAvoy's Xavier brought an air of warmth and authority for the hopes of preaching peace between humans and mutants. Though while he has appeared bald in Split, and though Professor X is known for being bald, for his first movies as Xavier, McAvoy has a full head of hair. My question to you is, true or false, James McAvoy did not shave his head for X-Men First Class? And there we go for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more fun stuff from me. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell to be notified for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.